The NFL MVP race so far in this 2019 season has not particularly been clear cut, as many players have made plays or put up stats that have potentially put themselves in talks for the potential award at the end of the year. But who do you really think should be at the top and deserving of this award? Obviously, we cannot make a complete determination as to who deserves the MVP award right now because we are only pretty much halfway through the season. But I still think at this point there is a big difference between who actually deserves MVP and who is simply quote unquote in talks for MVP. For me personally, there are only two players in the NFL right now that actually deserve the award. They're not in the talk stage or whatever you want to call it. They actually are in the running and deserve this award. First, I'm going to start with those players that are potentially in talks or they're in the race, they're involved in the race, but they're not particularly at the top. Now, first off, I'm going to start with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is currently leading an 8-2 Green Bay Packers team, and although he's had a ton of help from Aaron Jones and even Jamal Williams in the run game, he's still been able to do what he's been doing and pass and carry his weight. When it comes to passing yards, he's fifth in the league in passing yards, but when it comes to quarterbacks that aren't always losing or teams that are above 500, he is third place behind Russell Wilson and somehow Dak Biscuit. But nonetheless, he's up there in touchdowns as well. He just beat a very good Carolina Panthers team, and Aaron Rodgers is definitely in the talks for MVP this season. Let me not forget that he's been doing what he's been able to do without his top receiver in Davante Adams. Now, Davante Adams has been back for 2 games now, but they were on a big winning streak without him, and somehow it seems like that offense works better when Davante Adams isn't around. Either way, Aaron Rodgers has been able to pass just as well as he's been able to with Davante Adams around, with bums like Allen Lazard, not bums, let me rephrase. With players that aren't as good, such as Allen Lazard, Marcus Valdes-Scantling, he's been able to do what he's been doing just as well with or without Davante Adams. So I think that's also a big reason why he should be involved in the MVP race. Lamar Jackson is the second and last guy that I'm going to talk about that is involved in the quote-unquote talk phase of the MVP race. Now, you might be surprised by this simply because Lamar Jackson seems to be all over your social media and all over television and how he's making such a big case for MVP, blah, blah, blah. But in my opinion, I just don't think Lamar Jackson as a quarterback is doing enough to prove himself as the actual MVP. Now, like I said, he's definitely in talks. He can definitely work his way up there. But I think as of right now, he just does not deserve to be at the top. On screen here is a Barry McCockner tweet. Now, Barry McCockner is a big troll. I understand that. I learned the hard way. Barry McCockner on Twitter, if you don't know who that is, he's probably the biggest sports troll on Twitter. He has tricked many people such as Skip Bayless, but nevertheless, he still tweets out facts, and this is one of them. As you can read, Lamar Jackson this season versus Miami and Cincinnati, who have a combined record of 2-16. 14.8 yards per attempt, 8 touchdowns, 0 picks, 158 rating. Other 7 games, 6.8 yards per attempt, 7 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 83 rating. The stats are on screen here. The proof is in the pudding. The dude is only putting up stats against the shit teams. He's only making great plays against the shit teams. Do you guys remember in the first week when Lamar Jackson was blowing up with Hollywood Brown? They're throwing bombs to each other. He's making these great runs down the field. And guess who it was against? Miami. And then this past week, you saw one of his MVP runs where people are comparing him to Mike Vick. And it's like, he's facing the Bengals. There's a reason the Bengals are winless. Then that is a reason right there. They can't tackle. Like, that was a perfect example. He's only doing these things against the shit teams. If you want to dig deeper statistically into Lamar Jackson, you'll really quickly realize that Lamar Jackson is only thrown for just over 2,000 yards this season, and that's while playing the Bengals twice and the Dolphins once. So that's 3 shitbag games where you could easily pump those stats out, and you still have only thrown over 2,000 yards. Now, 2,000 yards, I think it's like 2,030-something. That ranks at 20th in the league in passing yards. 20th. There are a bunch of other quarterbacks better than you right now, Lamar Jackson, when it comes to passing. And amongst 500 teams above 500, Lamar Jackson ranks 12th in passing. That's still shit. Lamar Jackson does not pass, and he's not very good at it. And when it comes to playing teams that are above 500, he's only thrown for over 200 yards once. One time this season. Now, obviously, where Lamar Jackson really shines is when he runs the ball and when he scrambles. Now, he does rank 11th in rushing yards for a quarterback, which is very impressive. But nonetheless, it's still not what a quarterback is, quote-unquote, supposed to do. Like, To me, that's not what a quarterback should be doing as much, so you should not be deserving of MVP, if that makes any sense. For me, for somebody like Lamar Jackson to be in the top of the MVP race or to be really considered as an MVP, I think he would have to be in the top 5 of passing as well as have these rushing yards. It's like or have a little less rushing yards. I would take more rushing or less rushing yards in place for more passing yards for a quarterback of his caliber to be MVP. I just don't see running the ball as a quarterback to be particularly part of an MVP. I think your main job is to throw it. And I think that's what you got to do to be MVP. I don't know. That's just me. I get he's getting the job done. He's beating the Seahawks and he beat the Patriots. He's getting the job done. He's making great plays. In my personal opinion, I just don't see him being able to do enough to win MVP so far this season compared to what his competition is. Let me say that. Now I'll get into the two guys that I really feel like deserve MVP. They're going head-to-head, bashing back and forth. Who will come out on top as MVP? We don't know yet, but I think these are the top two guys as of right now. Christian McCaffrey is the first of the two that I will talk about. Now, for a running back to even be in the conversation is rare enough. And what this guy is doing is literally like the definition of video game numbers. Now, if Christian McCaffrey keeps the pace he's at going, he will break LaDainian Tomlinson's records for what he said in 2006. And on screen here are his stats from that season, his fantasy stats. But either way, those are still disgusting stats, whether they're fantasy or not. Now, I didn't even realize how good of a season that was for Tomlinson in 2006 until I looked it up right now. And I'm looking at this holy shit, how is that even possible? Beside for those absurd potential stats, I'll say, there are two other things I want to say about Christian McCaffrey. Number one being, I think Christian McCaffrey is the reason why the Panthers are 5-4 right now. I don't think Kyle Allen would be able to do what he's been able to do and bring this team to the 5-4 record they have without Christian McCaffrey. Now, don't get me wrong, Kyle Allen's not bad. I just think he's too young. I think the pressure would be too much if Christian McCaffrey was some average running back. I just don't think they'd be 5-4. They'd definitely be below 500 if it weren't for Christian McCaffrey. Now, the other thing I wanted to say is, depending on where you look or the analyst or the site you're looking at, Christian McCaffrey, when it comes to strength of schedule, which basically means how hard are the teams or how good are the teams you're facing? How good are their run defenses for a running back, for example, or for a receiver, how good is the passing defense? Well, Christian McCaffrey is always facing good run defenses. He's in the top 5 or the bottom 5 of strength of schedule, which means he's always facing those good run defenses. So it's not like he's facing the Bengals, the Dolphins, and the Redskins every week. He's still playing those good run defenses and putting up the numbers he is, which is absurd. Regardless of the fact that he's a running back, if any of these points aren't enough for you to realize why he should be in the top running spots for an MVP, then I don't know what's going to make you realize it. This guy's we're watching history right now. We're going to look back at the season and realize, holy shit, this was history in the making. The guy that I think Christian McCaffrey is going to have to take down is Russell Wilson. Now, Russell Wilson is a cheat code himself too. Beside for Christian McCaffrey being a cheat code, Russell Wilson is also a cheat code. This dude is unreal. And the second I realized that he deserves to be MVP is when he made that throw to Tyler Lockett in the end zone against the Rams. He was falling away 40 yards out. He just bombed it. It looked like he was throwing it out of the back of the end zone. And this dude hit Tyler Lockett, who also made a great catch. At that moment, I realized this guy deserves to be up there. Or he deserves MVP. If it's not Christian McCaffrey, it's this guy. Now, where I think Russell Wilson completely kicks Lamar Jackson's ass out of this conversation is that Russell Wilson makes the plays, but he also has the stats, where Lamar Jackson seems to only make the plays, but doesn't really have the stats. Russell Wilson is currently 4th in the league in passing yards this season, and he's 2nd among teams that are 500 or above. Now, Russell Wilson also leads the league in touchdowns, and it's not even close. He's currently sitting at 23 touchdowns when the second highest is 19, which is 4 more touchdowns than the closest next quarterback. Now, that's pretty damn impressive if you ask me. Russell Wilson also has about 250 or so rushing yards, which is significantly less than Lamar Jackson's 700. But for a quarterback, 250 rushing yards on one season is still pretty damn good. So at the end of the day, the MVP race as of right now comes between these two, Christian McCaffrey and Russell Wilson. And I really don't think there's any other debate. I mean, Christian McCaffrey as a running back, putting up these numbers, he deserves to be up here, no doubt. And I think if it weren't for him being a running back, I think he undoubtedly would be the MVP. And that's not coming from me. That's just coming from like knowing how the league is, where the league doesn't like to give MVP out to anybody other than quarterbacks. And I think if he wasn't a running back, he would undoubtedly get MVP for putting up numbers like this. Now, as for Russell Wilson, he is a quarterback. And I think he's the only quarterback as of right now that deserves MVP absolutely. And like I said, Lamar Jackson, comparing to Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson, get your ass out of here. I'll take Russell Wilson 100 times over. It's like I just don't think he deserves MVP either. Russell Wilson blows any other quarterback, in my opinion, out of the water. Even Aaron Rodgers. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is doing well, but I just don't think this current season he's doing what he has to win MVP. Now, if I really had to pick right now, I think I'd have to give the edge to Christian McCaffrey just simply because he's on the worst team. I mean, each team that these players play for are very good teams. Like, each team has a great defense, but I think Christian McCaffrey is just all around on the worst team. I think he's got the offense comparable to all the other teams is worse. His offense is worse. And I also think his defense is the worst out of the other three. I think out of all the four. I think he's on the collectively worst team, and he's still doing the unthinkable. And he's a running back putting up these historic numbers. So I think I just give the edge to Christian McCaffrey in this case. Well, I think that's going to be it for this video. I think I've covered everything I really want to. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you stick around for another one. I keep making these too long, and I keep telling myself I got to stop, but I keep making them long anyway, but I just keep talking, and I can't help it. But anyway, I'm doing it again. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you later. Blah.